Hey, it's Bill. You're tuned into episode number 54 of Three Questions and a Song, the podcast where the title tells you all there is to know, except for when it doesn't. With me on this episode is Tommi Tikka from the Impersonators. What's up, Tom?
Not much. Things are going good. Saturday night. Right after this, we have the sauna ready downstairs. So I'm gonna go with my sons. So it'll be a couple of beers, sauna. After sauna, some rock and roll. It's got a good Saturday night lined up for me.
What time is it there, Tom?
It's 7 o'clock right now.
7 o'clock. So 6-hour time difference from Pennsylvania in Norway.
Yeah, right now, except tomorrow when we spring forward an hour, it'll be 7, which is usually. Yeah, that's the usual time difference.
So we did our spring forward ahead of you. I didn't realize that it wasn't.
Oh yeah, I mean, I figured because I messed things up last year. I had an interview, not with you, but with somebody else, exactly on the same day last year, and I didn't make it to the interview because I thought it was going to be on at 8 o'clock, and instead it was on at 7 o'clock because obviously, because I've lived in the States, grew up there. I should know when people spring forward and when they fall back. But listen, once you're used to,
I live here and I don't know.
Yeah,
and I teach science.
I do, yeah. But as far as I'm concerned, I think they could just get rid of the daylight saving time. I think it's just a lot of hassle because a lot of countries do that at different times.
There's actually, I believe there's I don't know if it's a law or a referendum or whatever they're calling it, but there is something on the books right now where they're trying to make it that it's just daylight savings year round. So then,
yeah,
the times don't change. But okay, so you've been on the show. You're one of the first handful of people that are doing repeat rounds. So
okay,
you have a little bit of an idea of what goes on here. And I kind of gave you a little bit of a heads up on the first question I was going to ask you. Recently,
which one was that?
Well,
you did. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Yeah, go ahead.
Recently, I watched a documentary on Robert Johnson, the blues guitarist, which brings me to ask you if you were standing at a crossroads and the devil was standing in front of you, willing to let you have anything if you sold your soul to him.
If I ever had that happen to me,
yeah, what would you do?
If what would I do if I had that happen to me?
Yep. If you walked into the crossroads and he was standing there and he said, "Sell me your soul and you can have."
I want to say I wouldn't take the deal, but of course I would. I'm pretty sure. Well, if you had asked a 20 something year old me, I probably said that I'd run away. But then again, people get into music for a reason. Nobody, it's kind of. It's one of those professions where you want to become successful, and I think that to become successful, you kind of have to sell your soul in the process a little bit anyway, whether you meet the devil or not. So, in as much as the devil would meet me at the crossroads, when presumably I'd be waiting for him there, with my guitar. I kind of right now, I think that I've done well in music. I wouldn't take the deal now as I'm right now in my 40s, but if I could go back in time, I probably want to be even bigger and take the deal, man. To be honest with you, I'm only kidding, of course. It's a tough question to ask, but I love the myth. I love the story. And obviously blues and rock and roll in the way back when they were happening the first time, even in the 50s, it was the devil's music, as I'm sure that at least people of our vintage know.
Oh, yes. When I gave you the hint off the air, you said that you have another album that's coming up that's kind of based on that. Do you want to throw out any information on that?
Well, yeah. I mean, first off, there are blues fans and blues rock fans that that listen to a little bit of blues rock every once in a while, I my dad was heavily into, you know, African American music, I suppose to be called, blues and rock and roll. I mean, it was Muddy Waters, Chuck Berry, Robert Johnson, Howling Wolf, all those guys. He had. I actually have his records now because sadly he passed away a couple of years ago, but they're all downstairs. They're vinyl albums. I grew up on that stuff, and so when it was the Impersonators, obviously, we did a show a year ago, and that was on the single then Cloud 9, which is now on the album. And Impersonators sort of pop rock. But when I started my solo venture, it was very clear that this would be more blues rock oriented project. And I mean, it has some pop rock stuff as well. But now that I've just finished recording the album, my solo album, the Tommi Tikka and the Missing Hubcaps. It's going to come out in the fall, and one of the singles, I don't know if it's going to be the first or the second one, is called Doormat, and it's basically it's sort of the lyrics are very similar to those sort of blues tunes that Robert Johnson would do, you know. I went to the priest medicine man and he told me you're from below. You know, it's sort of very traditional in this sense. And I wanted to make a song like that. And so I definitely brought the Red-Eyed Demon and the Devil and all of those things that used to be very much part of the program when somebody wrote blues lyrics. I wanted to bring all those in. I'm a huge fan of Eric Clapton when he was in Cream. I think that was his heyday. I have that John Mayall album which is fantastic also. And so Doormat very much is sort of it's blues pop, I suppose. I can't play it to you now, but if you heard it, but it's got the traditional approach when it comes to the lyrics. Because lots of times nowadays you have somebody doing the blues and the lyrics are sort of mishmash of today's pop, and you have maybe a guitar that could be labeled as though that's blues rock for you, but it really, for somebody like me, when I listen to that stuff, it's very clean, and it really isn't the blues for me.
Now you mentioned your dad, and when we were talking off air, you told me that your current Impersonators album is a concept album, and you mentioned him then as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the concept behind the Life of Grant?
Yeah. So that's what the album's called, Life of Grant, and Grant is basically a fictional character that's based on my dad and my godfather. My dad was a merchant marine. My godfather was in the Marine Corps, and he was in Vietnam. And both of these guys were scarred by their experiences at sea and at war, and it affected everything they did. It's kind of, you know, if you grew up with one of these folks, you'd know what I'm talking about. And so my dad, like I said, sadly my dad passed away. It was like the best dad ever, really. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he told, I mean, I grew up listening to his sailor stories, which were kind of, you know, it's kind of cool. They're very, very exciting. For example, one story where there was this guy, a fellow merchant marine, who fell in love with a prostitute in Brazil, and then he disappeared. My dad always figured he was murdered. And so a lot of stories like this, when when you're a little kid, you kind of listen to them like they sound like a movie, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you get to our age, you start thinking in terms of, wow, those were rough times, pretty dysfunctional stuff, looking back on it. And so I thought, I'll start writing a book, just for my kids, that if they want to read about my dad's adventures. But then as I was writing the book, I thought that, I could also make an album out of all of this, just make sure that there's a flow, and one song leads to another, and and that was my dad's. There were my dad's stories and my godfather's stories, who joined the Marines when he was 17. He forged his parents' signature to basically go to war. If you think about that, it's kind of crazy, in a way.
That happened a lot.
Yeah, it happened a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Grant's character is basically, because I could go, I guess you can probably guess it could be turned into a rock opera. So it's like a book. We could talk about it for 2 hours, but in a nutshell, so it's basically, it's Grant's life is a combination of those two guys, and there's a little bit of me in Grant. And Grant's basically a character who forges his parents' signature. He becomes a Marine, goes to Vietnam, fights a war, comes back, struggles to find his place in society, and everything that he's experienced affects each and every one of his relationships. But the story has a happy end. The album comes with the digital booklet, and there's an essay explaining it all. So
my uncle was in the Navy during Vietnam.
Yeah. So you know a little bit about
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's also it's not just it's a celebration of these people, because I think that my dad was sort of all of these guys were old school alphas, because I think that if you think in terms of how much they gave, really, the sacrifice and everything without really asking for anything, and you compare that to the younger generation. I mean, there's a huge difference whether you want to admit it or not. And so part of it was that I wanted to get these stories out, because I think they're exciting stories, but and somebody should talk about these lives and their struggles. But also part of it was because I wanted to celebrate these guys. I don't think there's a lot of folks anymore who make albums or books about them, and certainly even the movies that are made, they're about operations and and life at sea, or a sailor that gets lost somewhere, and their adventures and their sort of action movies. But that's not real life, and I wanted to make an album about real life, and also an album that celebrates these guys and their sacrifice and whatever they went through.
Well, the song that we're going to feature off of the album is Scarlet Hell. How does that fit into the storyline of the concept?
Well, I mean, that's Grant, like me, gets divorced, remarries, has issues. His life becomes circus, and he's a little bit lost. So there's that aspect, and then there were also all these stories that my dad and his sailor buddies would tell about the let's say the red light districts, called the academic way, in all these different ports. Wild stories, man. Crazy stories that I'm certainly not going to get into here.
Thank you.
And so and Scarlet Hell is basically it's very anti-prostitution type of thing, because it involves human trade, drugs, and basically all sorts of any sort of criminal activity that you can imagine right now. And so, but I did want to, that's part of Grant's life, as it was part of these guys' lives. And whether it's been part of my life, I'm not going to tell. But it's if you read the lyrics carefully, you get a pretty good idea of what the room that you step into might look like. There's a lot of information there, and so it's about Grant going to see a prostitute, and it's also about him realizing way later in life what he has done as a younger dude, that maybe there's a more serious side to that maybe it wasn't just cool. Maybe these people are suffering. Maybe they're subject to all sorts of basically
like injustices.
Injustice, right? Thanks. Yeah, and injustices, and the sad fact of the matter is that there are people who do that. They choose to do that, but that's a small minority, and he realizes that the dark side of it. He realizes everything that's basically wrong with the picture, and instead of doing anything, the whole idea is that he sits down with her and tries to save her. And that's basically what Scarlet Hell is all about. It's the rooms painted. That's the color that the room is painted with, scarlet. And he realizes that that's really what he's walked into. He's walked into Scarlet Hell.
So it's almost about realizing something that you a wrong that you did and trying to correct it after the fact.
Yeah, and maybe not so much wrong as contributing to something that really isn't right. I think that we do a lot of things in life as younger people. You just kind of go with the flow, and there's huge peer pressure anyway to do remember what it's like to be, late teens, early 20s. What you consider cool, what you considered you need to experience, and what you took part in. And I think that when you're really, really, I would call that kind of, person who's 21, 22, from where I'm standing, that's really very, very young. And I think that as we go through life and we become moms and dads, and we understand all the dangers, and because it's going to a prostitute isn't just going to a prostitute. It's a variety of, it's got all sorts of things packed into it that you don't think when you're 21. Right. But maybe later on in life, as in Grant's case, you just kind of wake up to the fact that, man, I shouldn't have been doing this in the first place in Sao Paulo, 30 years ago. That, my God, what have I done? And so it's part of Grant's journey. Part of his Cloud 9, which is where he meets his wife. That's Cloud 9 is, that's basically the wife he meets when he's older. They get married and he finds peace, and that's basically what Goldfish Blues is all about. Humor is back in his life. He's feeling great, and the journey has come to a very positive and great end.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take a moment. We're going to listen to Scarlet Hell by the Impersonators. We're going to come back with Tom right after that. Those of you that are listening live, you're not going to actually get to hear the song right now. You'll have to wait until the 1st, which is only a couple days, and go to buildscene.com. Because if we put the song on the live video, then Facebook would mute us, and we don't want that. So the echo I was getting went away. Did you have a speaker turned up or something there?
No. It's weird.
That was weird.
Must have been in just the connection.
Well, it's gone now, so hopefully it stays away. It was only on me. It wasn't on you. So
all right, okay.
It's not a huge deal. All right, so we're going to come back in as if we just listened to the song. That was Scarlet Hell by the Impersonators. With me tonight on episode number 54 of 3 Questions in the Song is Tommi Tikka. He's hanging out with us from Norway.
No, from Finland. Close enough.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Why did I say that? Did I say Norway earlier?
No, I don't remember. But if you did, Finland, I just totally played along,
Not the furthest distance. I have an episode of Pennsylvania Rock Show coming up where I interviewed somebody in Australia.
That's far. Yeah.
So that on that interview, I was on Saturday. She was on Sunday.
Right. Yeah.
But all right. So what we're gonna do next? Cultt of She had a question for you. I'm gonna go ahead and let them ask it. And again, I'll edit this in later. What they wanted to know was if you have ever, or if you've ever thought about writing jingles for TV shows or theme songs.
TV shows and a couple of songs have been used for commercials, and I've basically given a permission. One was used for, I think it was a cell phone operator commercial. Yeah. And there have been a couple of other ones. But in terms of writing jingles and going for, I think that it's always been the case where somebody's called me and said that, look, I really like that bit of your song, and we have this commercial that can we use this particular song for that? And It's been cool. I think there's two different. I think that a lot of folks are deadly against that, but then again, sad to say, there's a lot of money involved in all that, and I think that if a song, right now nowadays, if somebody wanted to use one of the songs that they've always been, by the way, they've always been songs that I've written for other people to perform. Now, if somebody called me up and said that, look, we want to use Cloud9 or Scarlet Hell for this and that type of commercial, I'd probably want to know how much, what are you willing to pay? But if it's
almost going back to the beginning of where we started, it's almost like you're crossroads with the devil.
It's in this case, the devil might be a nice cell phone operator company, but I think that I think it depends on if there's always a price tag. But, if somebody says to get $100, I say absolutely not. If there's good money and the commercial's tasteful, you know what I mean. Fine. I had no problem with that.
Where can the listeners get a hold of The Life of Grant or any of the other stuff that you've put out?
It's on all streaming platforms right now. Go to Spotify, find the Impersonators. It's there, and I haven't checked, but it is in iTunes as well and Apple Music. It's there.
And the missing hubcaps are there as well.
Yeah, Tommi Tikka and the missing hubcaps are there as well. Yeah, right. You'll definitely find it. I think around about the time you put in Tommi Tikka, it just pops up. There aren't that many of Tommi Tikkas out there, making rock and roll. So but they're all there. They're all there, and the hubcaps just released. Well, not just in January, an EP titled "That's What Winston Churchill Said," and then the next release will be an album, and that's going to come out in, I want to say September, but I can't remember now what we agreed. It's going to be out on MTS Records. It's September. It was September, beginning or mid-September, somewhere there, and it's going to be called "This Is My Happy Face."
I have to say, I feel like you target me a little bit with that title, with the band name. My car has one hubcap.
I mean, that's why my dad came up with the name, actually, because he wanted, he like I said, old school alpha. He wanted his kid to learn all these, how to change a tire, and my mind was always elsewhere. And because he was always writing a song, I was always writing a song in my mind or not focusing on what we're doing. And then he had these, because he was in the tire business, my dad, when I was a kid. So he had these custom made hubcaps. He was really interested in cars, and we were very different. And we were changing tires, and we took the hubcaps off, as you do, anybody who's ever done that. And I messed up. One of them rolled off the driveway into the street. There was a van that came and crushed it, and it was a custom made hub. It was expensive, right? And my dad was looking at the hubcap that was in basically 100 different pieces. He was looking at me. He was looking at the car. He was looking at the three that he had. Now I had to get a new one, except that then he found out he had to get the whole set, and it was a big deal. But luckily, and nothing huge came out of that. It was sort of rather understanding. But then later on, he said that that band that you have, that it should be called Tommi Tikka and the Hubcaps. Just basically busting my balls a little bit. And when he passed away, and I started the solo venture, and I was thinking about a name for the group, I thought that let's call it Tommi Tikka and the Missing Hubcaps, because I actually broke 5 of his hubcaps over the years. And many different things. It wasn't intentional in any way. And I think 3 of them he was sort of part of. But I thought that, we'll call the band Tommi Tikka and the Missing Hubcaps, because, that's also the missing players, because I play everything myself in Tommi Tikka and the Missing Hubcaps. And so I thought, it fits. And also I wanted a name where nobody else would have that band name, because then one of the problems in Spotify is that you can have you release music under your own name, and then somebody else by the same name releases music, and it's all mixed up there. And so I thought that if there is another Tom Tikka that's going to put out a record, then there probably isn't another Tom Tikka that with a band called the Missing Hubcaps, because you can have hubcaps, you probably don't have the Missing Hubcaps. And right now, I think the name is out there where I'm pretty safe right now. I think in terms of with the name The Impersonators, Antti and I own it, and so if there have been bands over the years who put out music as The Impersonators, we own the name worldwide. So it's just a message to Spotify that, look, take these guys down because we own the name, and here are the papers, and that's kind of easy. But I wanted to avoid all that with the Missing Hubcaps because it's always a process, and instead of then making music, you end up contacting lawyers and YouTube, Spotify, all these different platforms, and it's not in their best interest really to take the music down. You have to have the legal papers, you have to always send them. It just eats up a lot of your time, and I wanted to avoid it with this project, and hence the long name and all these sort of. But it's great to have that name, because whenever I see the logo or the band name, I always think about my dad.
I love the answer. All right, so what I need last from you, Tom, is I give you a little bit of homework, and I sent you to check out Post Profit, and I need you to ask a question of them.
Well, first off, it was good music, great music actually. I read their bio, and I read all the influences. To me, it sounded like a mixture of Creed and Pearl Jam and a couple of the other bands that they mentioned. I actually enjoyed it a lot. I listened to the whole 3 songs that they had. Noticed they're working on an album now, but that's not your question. I dug the music. I was interested in where does the name come from? It was Post Profit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's not your usual everyday kind of rock band name.
And what are they doing with the profit now that they're
after? Yeah, because I mean, you and I could use it, right?
That's right.
Send it our way, man. We need to eat. But yeah, I was intrigued because it's I like the name a lot. I like it a lot. I think it's very original. It could be obviously that the same story as with me, where it comes from somewhere, and also it's an original name, something that not everybody will think of, and it's got 2 different words. Again, you kind of safe. But I'm sort of, to be really honest with you, I'm sort of hoping that there is a story behind the name, and that it's a good one. And actually got intrigued enough that I'm definitely going to watch the episode that they are part of, because I truly want to know.
I just released an episode of the Pennsylvania Rock Show on March 26th, and the band's name is the Slam Band and Sam. And my original question was going to be, why is Sam being ostracized? Why isn't he part of the band?
Right.
But it gets even funnier than that. There is no Sam.
Right. So it's okay. Got it.
So they went on and explained the story, and what it was there's 6 of them in the band.
Yeah.
And they had like 100 different band names that they were trying to pick from, and they couldn't come up with one that everybody agreed on. So they asked one of their grandparents, a grandmother, and she came up with 2 names, and they said the first one they couldn't say on the air.
Okay. Yeah.
And the second one was the
Go Slam, Grandma, right?
Slam, and then Sam. So
cool. Yeah, I mean it's another great name.
But yeah. Hey, well, Tom, I want to thank you for hanging out with me on episode 54.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, man. Enjoyed it a lot.
And when the next time you want to come on, let me know, and we'll fit you in.
Hey, cool. We'll definitely do.
All right. So this has been episode 54 of 3 Questions and a Song. Make sure you check out the Impersonators at impersonatorsmusic.com. If you're watching the video, it is over there. I can't really there. It's kind of there. And as always, check out buildascene.com. Support your local musicians, and we will see you on episode 55 on the 15th of April. Catch you later.
Bye.